Welcome to the Saturday Cadence podcast. I'm Blake Biscardi, and remember, the Saturday Cadence podcast is the heartbeat of college football. Happy New Year, everybody. I was at the Rose Bowl on Wednesday, and I watched Ohio State enter Death Star mode. The Buckeyes took it to number one Oregon, complete shocking fashion, 41-21. The Buckeyes outdo the Ducks. It was 34-0 at one point. Just a masterful coaching display from Ryan Day, Chip Kelly, Jim Knowles, and the entire Ohio State staff. Well, welcome into Saturday Cadence. My name is Blake Biscardi. It's good to be with you as we recap the quarterfinals of the College Football Playoff game. We're going to start with the Rose Bowl. That was the game that I attended for this round, and I got to see Will Howard and Ohio State at its best. We thought that after Tennessee, that was the game where Ohio State peaked, and maybe they couldn't get back to that level again. Well, they did that, and then some. Oregon could not do anything, and I'm going to get into this in a little bit deeper fashion, but just at first glance, you're watching this game, Ohio State goes right down the field. They score in a couple plays, just a minute. It takes Jeremiah Smith to go over 40 yards to find the end zone there. And it was 7-0 Ohio State. Then Will Howard finds Emeka Egbuka later in the first quarter. It was 14-0, then 17-0. And you're thinking to yourself, as you're there, okay, all right, this game's probably going to slow down eventually. Oregon's a really good team. They just haven't gotten anything going on offense yet, whereas the Buckeyes have thrown their best punches first. And let's see, Oregon can score. They get the ball out of the half, so let's see how this game goes. And then it's 24-0. Ohio State scores again. Travion Henderson runs 66 yards. Now you're looking at 31-0, 34-0. And you're sitting to yourself in the middle of the second quarter as it's 34-0 and just wondering what you're witnessing. It was one of those things where you were so present to the moment. And now we know the Rose Bowl, all the pageantry, the tradition, the setting, there's no setting like it in sports, in my opinion. And I know a lot of other people share the same thing. That setting is so unique. And I'm a big picture and video guy. I like to, document things. Not a vlogger, but I like to take pictures and videos. I hardly took any in the first half. I was so present to the moment of being at the Rose Bowl, watching Ohio State and that offense cook the entire time. And so much credit's going to go to the offense and Jeremiah Smith and Will Howard and Chip Kelly. And you know what? Rightly so. But one thing I want to do is also give credit to the defense. The plan that Jim Knowles had, Jack Sawyer, Cody Simon, Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, not going to show up a ton on the stat sheet, but he affected that game everywhere. This entire Ohio State defense was world class, especially early in that game. They went to a little bit more of a base look there in the second half because you're up by 5 scores on the number one team in the country, which no one saw that coming. We were hoping for a classic, and for Ohio State fans, it absolutely was. That was the best game that Ohio State has played as a football team since the Tennessee game. But before that, it was that 2020 Clemson semifinal. Ohio State has not had games like this. And now you see the full potential of this offense and this defense being reached. Ohio State has grown over the last couple of weeks. That Michigan loss really forcing Ohio State into some things here. And what we're getting now with this Ohio State offense is the best of Ryan Day and the best of Chip Kelly. And you can see that by how creative that Ohio State has been in the passing game down the field vertically. That is something that Ryan Day, that's his hallmark thing. Ryan Day loves to throw the ball. He loves to stretch the field. He loves to get his guys in space, get the ball to his playmakers. And you see Chip Kelly, how innovative Ohio State has been with the running game. They went away from just trying to force feed it up the middle. That's not something personnel-wise the Buckeyes are going to be able to do. And we're going to see that against Texas, how the offensive line is going to be able to match up against Texas' defensive line. But you saw against Oregon, Ohio State threw the ball first to open up the run game, and then it did. And we saw Travion Henderson get loose a couple of times. He scored twice. We saw Quidshot Junkins. He got loose for a couple of runs. He carried the ball 17 times for 85 yards. But the big story to this game is Will Howard and how precise that he's been with the football, and Jeremiah Smith. Whether it's Jeremiah Smith making the Oregon safety look silly with just tilting his body slightly to the left as he breaks right for a wide open touchdown in the second quarter. It actually happened right in front of me. But the precision of Will Howard, we saw that ball on the sideline to Jeremiah Smith on a third down. We saw him high point a ball in triple coverage. Just unbelievable body control for Jeremiah Smith and ball skills by the talented freshman, 6'3", 225 pounds, just bigger and better than any player in the Oregon secondary. And you could see that it was evident of that, where Will Howard, Ryan Day, they all thought, you know what, our guy's better than yours. Make a play. And their guy made a play. Jeremiah Smith was unbelievable. He caught 7 passes for 187 yards and 2 touchdowns. This freshman is absolutely sensational. He is among the best players in the country. He is the most talented freshman in the country. And now we're going to get to see Jeremiah Smith against this Texas pass defense in the Cotton Bowl. Texas pass defense is among the best in the country. They are locked down. So we're going to get to see a fascinating chess match between the Ohio State passing attack and the Texas pass defense in Dallas on Friday night. Which is elsewhere in this game, you're taking it in, and there was a stealth bomber flyover at the middle. Everything that is just done with world class by the Rose Bowl and this bowl site. It is the best run bowl game in sports. And all the things that you're looking at and taking in the setting, the fans, I'll tell you what, I was there early and it looked like 80-20 Oregon fans. And all of a sudden, the Ohio State fans started coming in there. That crowd was at least 50-50. Ohio State may have had a few more fans there, but that was at least a 50-50 crowd. It was everything you wanted in that Rose Bowl. Old school Pac-12 Big Ten matchup. And then Ohio State ends up winning that game. They've won their last couple of Rose Bowls. And you look at a guy like Dylan Gabriel, the Buckeyes held him in check. Oregon was not able to stretch the field vertically at all. They had a couple of plays where they had some guys open. Dylan Gabriel didn't always get to hit them because the story of this game last time we heard the Ohio State defensive line didn't do anything. They couldn't get to Dylan Gabriel. They couldn't affect him. He had all day to throw. There were some lapses in coverage by the Buckeye defense. Ohio State notched 8 sacks in this game, 13 tackles for loss, 8 sacks. Will Howard was not sacked once in this game. Cody Simon and Lathan Ransom, JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, Caden Curry, all notching at least 1 sack. Cody Simon, JTT, and Sawyer all having 2. Those guys played out of their mind. Lathan Ransom continues to be the hardest hitting safety in college football, but this Ohio State defense, this is the best defense in the country. I know it's not to say that they cannot be beaten, but this whole team on both sides of the football is playing with a lot of confidence right now. They have found something as they have prepared for this college football playoff. This is their last chance. They are fighting for another game to wear that scarlet and gray, and that's what they've all been saying. You can't fix the Michigan game. You cannot go back and win that game, but what you can control is what's in front of you, and Ohio State has done a phenomenal job managing the moment, what is in front of them, playing with great energy and confidence, not too much emotion. They are focused. This team, you saw the sideline, they were getting the crowd involved in. Will Howard is sitting there. He's tapping his teammates on the helmet. He's amping guys up in the huddle. He's looking over to the sideline, smiling at the sideline, pumping up the crowd. He's completely involved in every single thing that's happening. The defense is the same way. You're watching the sideline the whole time. Vastly different energies on the sidelines for Ohio State and Oregon. And I know the score is indicative of that, but just this Ohio State team, they came with a very business-like approach, and that was evident in this game. They took it to Oregon to levels a team has never had. A number one team in the country losing by 20 games in a playoff quarterfinal. You just don't hear about those kinds of things happening. Ohio State is the first, here's a stat for you, the first playoff team in college or in the NFL to have 4 touchdowns or more of 40 plus yards in a single half of football. That was how dominant that first half was by Ohio State. That was probably the most dominant half of football that we have ever witnessed with good on good matchups. I know we see that happening. And again, this is not to slight Oregon at all. There was nothing the Ducks were going to be able to do in that game to win this game based on how that played out. But we see these kinds of things happen when you're playing lesser competition. But this was good on good. Oregon is an elite football team. They have been the best team in the country all year long. They are elite. There's nothing to take away from that. It's just a testament to the ceiling that Ohio State has when it could actually reach it. And that's what they did. The Buckeyes are playing to their ceiling. Now the question is, can they do it again? We saw them do it against Tennessee at home. That game was a home playoff game. They had their backs against the wall after the loss to Michigan. Then we're getting the revenge factor game. They get to play Oregon again. Now you get to play Texas. You get to play An SEC team in a semifinal in its own backyard in Jerry World in Dallas. Can Ohio State sustain this yet again? This is going to be a different game plan from the Buckeyes, and we're going to get more into the semifinal preview on the show that comes out in a couple of days. We'll have that for you. It's going to be a little bit early this week, looking at a Wednesday release here, so there can be time because we have a semifinal on Thursday between Penn State and Notre Dame, and then Ohio State and Texas will kick off on Friday night at 7:30 Eastern time. But just an overall outstanding performance from the Buckeyes in this game. Nothing to take away from Oregon. It was not their day, and there was nothing that they could do about that. That is an elite team with a great season. And hats off to Dan Lanning for the job that he has done this year. Dylan Gabriel, among the best in the country there. But Oregon just ran into an absolute buzzsaw on Wednesday. The next game that I want to get into here is the Sugar Bowl. And in this matchup, we were talking about Gunnar Stockton and what the matchup was going to look like for Georgia, how they would use them in the offense. What if people were run heavy, pass heavy? What were they going to do? How would they attack this Notre Dame defense, which has been stout all year long? And something that we noticed for Notre Dame was just how physical and disciplined that this team has been. Marcus Freeman has done an absolutely phenomenal job coaching this team, and then that was evident. It was 6-3 late, very late in the first half, and then all of a sudden Georgia fumbles. Notre Dame gets it back. They score again. Okay, they're going into the half 13-3, and then the ensuing kickoff outside of halftime to start the third quarter, Notre Dame runs it back. Now you're looking at a 20-3 ball game. It just completely flipped on its head. Notre Dame is opportunistic. They are focused. They are disciplined. They know who they are. Riley Leonard did not even have to throw for 100 yards in this game to beat the Kings of the SEC in Georgia. And now I know this isn't the typical Georgia team the last couple of years, but Georgia still has good athletes. I know they're playing with the backup quarterback, but Gunnar Stockton played well. His receivers were not helpful to him at times in this game. Key drops. Stockton was 20-32 for 234 yards and a score. I mean, he did not play bad for a backup quarterback. The Georgia defense, Notre Dame would just outplayed, out-physicaled, and outmanned Georgia at the line of scrimmage on both sides. I mean, if you'd have told me before this game Riley Leonard was going to be 15 of 24 for 90 yards and a touchdown, I would have said, oh, Notre Dame is not going to be able to overcome that because Georgia, it's hard to run the football on Georgia, and that defense had gotten to Riley Leonard, and they kept him in check all day. That was not the case at all. Notre Dame ended up running for 154 yards, and they didn't do anything all that spectacular in the game. They were just better in the situations. They were better at the line of scrimmage. They were better on special teams. This line change style audible that Marcus Freeman called in the fourth quarter to ice the game. It was 4th-and-1 deep in their own territory. Marcus Freeman has the entire Notre Dame offense run off the field or the punt unit and then sends the entire offense onto the field as a mass substitution. Georgia had to sprint onto the field, drew them off sides. It was a free play after that. First down Notre Dame, and Georgia did not get the ball back until very, very late. It was masterful coaching from Marcus Freeman, and that's a testament to him. You could see the Jim Tressel in him. That was his head coach when he played at Ohio State as a linebacker. You could see the Jim Tressel in him with how he coaches, and that's just a really special thing for Marcus and everything that he's done in South Bend with this Irish program. Brian Kelly leaves it. He gets hired from within, or promoted from within, rather, and these players love playing for him. He is a player's coach. The Irish are 13-1. This is their best season in school history outside of those national championship winning seasons, and now they're going to have a shot to get back to the biggest stage in all of college football, which is the national championship game, as they prepare to host Penn State in a semifinal in the Orange Bowl on Thursday. And one thing I want to notice too here with this, how this format's going to play out is Notre Dame and Georgia, they got delayed. There was a terror attack, and want to just pause real quick and any of the victims. And we are remembering you in our thoughts and our prayers and everything surrounding in those communities. Our thoughts and prayers are with you because it was absolutely tragic and devastating to see that happen, especially on New Year's Day down in New Orleans. And that caused a delay for the game another day. So it got pushed back. Penn State getting to play early on New Year's Eve. This game did not kick off until the 2nd. So Penn State already having the extra day's rest. Now they get 2 extra days rest. Notre Dame having to play on the shorter week of the 2 for the semifinals because they play on Thursday. So how will the Irish respond in that game? That's going to be something to watch. But one other thing that I want to look at is in this game, I was just telling you, Riley Leonard threw for 90 yards. They only ran for 154 yards. Notre Dame got outgained by 56 yards in this game. Georgia had 300 yards of offense. Notre Dame only had 244. So when you're looking at something like that, this was also the case in the other two games that we haven't discussed yet with Penn State and Boise and with Arizona State and Texas. First of all of the teams lost that had a bye, and all of the teams that had a bye outgained the teams that did not, with the exception of Ohio State over Oregon. Ohio State outgained the Ducks by a wide margin. But Georgia outgained Notre Dame, Arizona State outgained Texas, and Boise State outgained Penn State. So that is very interesting as a stat to see if it's the rest versus rust, how that's all going to play out. And again, I don't think that's too relevant of an argument there, but Notre Dame advances 23-10. They control the game, and now they're going to get Penn State, a team that's probably going to be pretty fresh, having only played SMU and Boise State. But Abdul Carter left the game with a shoulder injury. Will he be able to go? That's going to be a massive factor in this ball game for the Nittany Lions. But before we get to that Penn State Boise State game, let's talk about this Texas Arizona State game. This is a game that needed double overtime to decide it. There was a questionable targeting call that was missed. That seemed to be textbook targeting. Talked to some people. They all said that by definition, that was exactly what targeting should be. There was some speculation as to if the refs held their whistle because of the situation and what that would have led to, which is not supposed to happen, but we do see things like that happen. We will never know the answer to that, but you could argue that that did cost Arizona State the game. Now, Arizona State did not play all that well in the first half, but then they looked like a team possessed in the second half. They came out and took it to Texas and put this game into overtime. And then you're looking at overtime. Texas is now faced with a 4th and 13. We're watching this from inside the stadium at the Rose Bowl because they kind of overlap the starts here. So that was really challenging, especially with all the fireworks that were happening in the Rose Bowl with the Ohio State offense. It was tough to pay attention to two things, one live, one on the phone there on the monitor. And they convert 4th and 13, they score, and then they win the game by 8 in double overtime. So Texas survives. They were on upset alert. This was the game I thought that Texas would be able to control. And I was right in the first half. Then Arizona State showed a lot of resilience and fight. Cam Scatterbo, he played outstanding. He carried the ball 30 times as a workhorse for 143 yards and 2 scores. He also had that one pass for 42 yards and a touchdown that he completed. So Scatterbo was used all over the field. He caught 8 passes for 99 yards. He was the offensive MVP of this game. This is the first time that the Peach Bowl has ever awarded offensive player of the game to a player on a team that did not win the game. So Cam Scatterbo, hats off to you, a tremendous talent for the Sun Devils. And then you look over at Texas, Quinn Ewers, 322 yards and 3 touchdowns. And what I told you about Texas before against Clemson is they ran for almost 300 yards. Well, in this game, they threw for over 300 yards, and they could not really get the run game going. So Texas, what that is, though, it shows you a good team because they can win the game on the ground. They can win the game through the air. But that's going to be something to watch against this Ohio State team because if Texas is not able to run the football and they become one-dimensional, that is a really good Ohio State defense. So that matchup is going to come into play. How is Texas going to attack this Ohio State defense? Because they've not had to send extra rushers and dedicate extra resources to getting home to the quarterback. Can they force Quinn Ewers into some situations where he becomes turnover prone, like we saw against Georgia? Do we see Arch Manning mixed in with this? So the Texas game plan from Steve Sarkisian going to be very intriguing, how he decides to attack this Ohio State defense, because the game was on Ewers' shoulders against Arizona State. Can it be on Ewers' shoulders against Ohio State? We're going to find out. But if it's me and I'm looking at this game, Texas is going to need to have a mix of the run and the pass to have success on this Ohio State defense, because this could be a game that becomes a defensive battle and slugfest where it's the first of 21, 24 points wins the ball game. How's Texas going to get their offense? How are they going to score? So that's something that I want you guys to just keep in mind as you're thinking of how this matchup is going to play out. Again, we're going to have more in the semifinal preview for that on the episode that comes out later this week. Texas notches a humongous win over Arizona State to get to the semifinal game. Again, easier road than the Buckeyes or the Irish, but here they are. Here's the matchup. We're going to get to see this on Friday in Dallas in the Cotton Bowl. And then the final game that I want to discuss is this Penn State Boise State game. And in this game, too, it was pretty much what I told you. I said Boise State is going to keep this game close, and they're going to have to execute if they want to have a chance to win the ball game. And you know what they did not do? They did not execute. Their quarterback took some untimely sacks. There were missed field goals, dropped touchdown passes. So for Boise, they played a good game. They played well, but they did not play good enough to beat a team like Penn State, which did not have to do anything spectacular to win the game. Katron Allen ran for 134, Nicholas Singleton 87 yards and a touchdown. Drew Allard played pretty well. He was only 13 to 25, though, for 171 and 3 touchdowns. So the 3 touchdowns being his big stat. Penn State's not had to do anything impressive, and there's going to be a big talent jump for the Nittany Lions here. So Penn State has had 2 wins in the college football playoff, but do their fan base and critics of the program rate those as a big win? So we're going to now see Penn State have a chance to get a big win here against Notre Dame in the semifinal, because they've not had one considered a big win. They've just been wins because they've been favored by double digits against Boise and then nearly double digits against SMU. This spread, though, in this semifinal game is going to open at Notre Dame -1.5. It has moved to 2 already. And then same thing for Ohio State and Texas. That opened at Buckeyes -5. It is now Buckeyes -6. So lots to pay attention to here in the semifinals, though. But for Penn State to have a chance in this one against Notre Dame, they're going to have to use Tyler Warren and Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen and Julian Fleming and those skill position players. They're going to have to, because Notre Dame likes to play a lot of press man coverage. They think that their guys are better. And you know what? Penn State's going to have a hard time exploiting Notre Dame on the outside, on the perimeter. So how does Andy Kotelnicki get creative? We've seen him do it all year long. He had a lot of creative formations against USC. We saw some against Oregon. What wrinkles does he have against Notre Dame and that defense? So keep that in mind. Table it, get those thoughts churning as we prepare you for the Wednesday show this week to preview the semifinal games here. But again, Penn State gets its way into the semifinal. They're going to face Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame. And then you have Ohio State, the most red-hot team in the country, against Texas, which is, again, one of the better teams in the country here, probably the 3rd best, most talented roster. So there's going to be NFL talent all over the field in Dallas. That game going to be a slugfest, defensive battle, chess match for both teams. I'm very excited to have that episode to you on Wednesday. David and Grant will both join. So we're looking forward to that. And just the last thing here as I close the show, if you ever get a chance to get out to Pasadena for the Rose Bowl, I highly encourage you to do it. It is, in my opinion, the best venue in sports. It is one that is incomparable to others. Now, you can think of your home stadium. You can think of all the exhilarating experiences that you have had there. You can think of the cathedrals of college football, like Ohio Stadium, like the Big House, like the Coliseum. You can think of Beaver Stadium. You can think of Death Valley. You can think of Bryant-Denny Stadium. You can think of DKR, Memorial Stadium. You can think about all these places, the Swamp, Neyland. Okay. None of them compare to the overall setting of the Rose Bowl. And you know what? It's not that hostile, total home crowd, stadium pulse style advantage. It's a split crowd. It's loud in there. It's fun. The San Gabriel Mountains paint the backdrop behind there. The grass is absolutely pristine. You walk out there and it just smells like football. It's on New Year's Day, 2 p.m. every single year. It is the first-rate game of college football. I highly encourage you to make the trip out there, because it is unlike any place, any venue that you'll ever take in a sporting event in the world. It is world class. So that is my pitch to you. If your team ever makes the Rose Bowl, or if you just want to go there as a neutral fan just to experience it as a college football fan, make the trip. It is worth it. Every dollar that you spend will be worth it. But guys, I appreciate you tuning in to the recap show today as we take in the quarterfinals, recap all that, digest it, and then we're going to move to the semifinals here. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave us a review. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We will see you next time. God bless.